Chapter 36. Busy Schedule. Third Person's POV. After Ember finished laughing at Danny's mortification, she puffed into a cloud of pink smoke and reappeared inside the sound booth. Danny blinked, caught off guard by witnessing it firsthand. He leaned toward the mic, pressed a button, and asked, "How did you do that?" Ember, now adjusting the headphones over her ears, gave him a puzzled look. "Do what?" "Teleport. That smoke trick, how'd you do it? Think you could teach me that later?" he asked, his eyes lighting up with curiosity. Ember smirked and dramatically flipped her teal fire hair behind her. "You really can't do that?" "Ha, sorry, sweetie, but that skill's rare, 1 in a million can pull it off." "Oh, please," Danny shot back with a grin. "Do you know who you're talking to?" "Danny Fenton, ghost extraordinaire." Ember rolled her eyes playfully. All right, after all our little recording sessions, I'll give you a crash course. Think of it as payment. But if you can't learn it, don't come crying to me." "Got it. Deal," Danny beamed. "Now, shall we get started?" He slid over to the workstation, his fingers dancing across the controls with ease. Ember gave him 2 thumbs up through the glass. They got to work immediately. Ember knew exactly the beat and tempo she wanted, and Danny, to her surprise, was quick on the uptake. He adjusted audio levels in real time, syncing up the tracks perfectly. After laying down a few vocal takes, Ember paused and looked out at him. "Not bad, Ghost Boy. You sure this isn't your side hustle?" Danny chuckled, tweaking one of the sliders. "I dabble. Helps when the artist actually knows what they're doing. It helps that Batman taught me everything he could in a week," Danny thought, amused. How he knew anything about music editing is beyond me. Probably had to do with analyzing audio recordings, voice prints, clarity, maybe even some weird interrogation tech. Ember leaned into the mic with a grin. "All right, let's hit the chorus again. I want this one to burn." Danny nodded and hit record. The booth lit up with Ember's signature blue flames as she belted out the chorus with raw power and emotion. The first song she chose was still the same one from her concert, Remember Ember. It took a little over 2 hours to finish recording her vocals and laying down the tracks. There were a few retakes, but far fewer than Danny had expected. He really meant it when he said it helped when the artist knew what they wanted. Once they wrapped up recording, Danny motioned Ember over from the booth. She teleported with a puff of smoke, reappearing beside him. "Now what?" she asked. "Now comes the taxing part," Danny said, leaning back. "Editing, mixing, and mastering the song. We've got to blend your voice seamlessly with the track." "And how long's that going to take?" Ember asked, floating behind his chair and peering over his shoulder. "That depends," Danny replied, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. "Could take a few hours, or several days, depending on complexity." He glanced at the clock on the screen, 3:04 p.m. "We've got about 2 hours left before I have to head out," Danny sighed. "And weekdays are going to be tricky. My schedule's packed." "Huh," Ember blinked. "Only 2 hours. What's so important? What do you even do during the week?" Danny looked up at her with an amused smile. "You think all this comes free? I've got what you might call a part-time job. I protect the city from threats, especially at night." Ember looked down at him in disbelief. "Wait a minute, are you saying you're, like, a superhero or something?" "In a way," Danny said with a shrug. "It's a responsibility, an obligation I took upon myself. So my nights are usually busy, watching over the city." He didn't meet her gaze, already imagining the teasing look she'd be giving him. But Danny missed the actual expression on her face, a reluctant yet sincere look of respect, finally understanding why he had stopped her back when they first met. "I see," Ember said softly. "Then I really can't stop you. Sounds serious. Important to you. Would be selfish of me to ask for more of your time after everything you're already doing for me." Danny snapped his head up, stunned. "Wait, what? What?" Ember blinked, confused by his expression. "You actually have empathy. That's shocking, to say the least." Ember's eye twitched. She took a swing at him, but Danny phased his head intangible at the last second. "I'll show you just how much empathy I have, after I kick your ass for that comment," she grumbled. Danny gave her a teasing sneer before softening into a smile. "The only real time I'll have is on the weekends, so we can meet up then and work on this." "I'm fine with that," Ember replied with a casual shrug. Danny looked up at her. "But that doesn't mean I won't still be helping. I'll try to work on the track during my free time, and I can even teach you how to use the equipment so you can make progress when I'm not around. Seriously? Ember asked, surprised. Danny nodded, though he inwardly sighed, realizing how packed his schedule had become. Weekdays are school, followed by training, then night patrols with Batman. Weekends are early morning training, working with Ember for a few hours, then back to nightly activities. I don't really have much free time anymore. He exhaled, then added, on the days we don't meet, you should start figuring out what your next song is going to be. My next song? Ember echoed, caught off guard. Danny stared at her, blinking slowly. Then he closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Ember. Yeah, she responded quietly. Did you really think you were going to make it big off just one song? Quote. No, she finally muttered. Are you lying to me? Quote. Maybe. Ember, Danny groaned in exasperation. Hey, don't blame me. All it takes is one hit song to blow up. She defended. Danny leaned forward on the workstation and buried his face in his hands. Oh, Ember, your poor fans. What's that supposed to mean? She snapped. Just imagine supporting an artist wholeheartedly, waiting, hoping, anticipating their next big release, only to find out they only ever plan to make one song. A faint blush rose on Ember's bluish cheeks, a rare sight. Danny pressed the talk button and leaned into the microphone dramatically. Get ready, ladies and gentlemen, for the one-hit wonder, Ember McLean. I am not a one-hit wonder. Your face is a one-hit wonder. She shouted back, her voice echoing through the booth. Real mature, Danny teased with mock approval. Grumbling under her breath, Ember muttered, fine, on the days you're busy, I'll focus on writing new songs. Now shut up about it. Whatever you say, OHW, Danny said with a sly grin. Before Ember could hurl another insult, Danny glanced at the time and noticed a few more minutes had ticked by. Anyway, come on, I'll teach you what I can with the time we've got left. With the two of us working together, we'll get through this faster. Asterisk 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 asterisk. +10 advanced chapters on patreon.com/shadow_d_monarch3. 19 comments 0 vote. Chapter 37, Untrained Power. Third person's POV. Location, Wayne's Pharmaceutical. Date, February 24th. Time, 5:50 p.m. Danny was launched through the air like a ragdoll, his back slamming hard into the brick wall behind him with a sickening crack. The monstrous creature responsible growled lowly, stomping forward like a walking tank. Towering over Danny at nearly 3 times his height, the beast was a grotesque colossus draped in glistening green scales. Muscles rippled beneath the reptilian hide, and jagged claws gleamed under the dim, flickering light. His eyes burned with primal rage. This was Killer Croc, and he wasn't holding back. Ah! Danny cried out in pain as the impact crumbled the wall behind him. He smashed through it, crashing into a metal shelf lined with medical supplies. Bottles and vials exploded around him, splashing his body in a rainbow of unknown liquids. The pungent cocktail soaked into his clothes and hair as glass rained down. Groaning, Danny pushed himself to his elbows, slick with medicinal goo. I don't think any of these are the meds I need, he muttered weakly. Before Killer Croc could close the gap again, a series of sharp explosions and blinding flashes erupted from above, lighting up the ruined room. Croc snarled, stumbling back as the flares disoriented him. Ha, came a chilling laugh from the shadows. Robin dropped down from the ceiling like a striking hawk, his foot slamming into Killer Croc's jaw with a sickening crack. The reptilian brute staggered backward, only to bump into a dark figure cloaked in shadows. Batman. Jones, we're trying to help you, Batman said grimly. With fluid precision, he delivered a sweeping kick to the back of Croc's knee, forcing the massive creature down just enough for Batman to jab a sedative injector directly into the thick muscle at the base of his neck. Roaring in fury, Croc twisted and lashed out with a wide backhand. Batman flipped cleanly over the massive green arm, somersaulting through the air. Mid-spin, he hurled a pair of batarangs that sliced through the air with a whistle. They embedded into Croc's scales, beeping rapidly before detonating in a controlled blast that tore at his hide and staggered him further. "We need to hold him down," Batman growled, landing in a crouch. "The sedative's strong, but with Jones' mutated physiology, it'll take time to kick in." Robin darted in, twirling his bow staff in a blur as he slipped between Croc's furious, clumsy swipes. Every strike Robin landed cracked against bone or muscle, but the monster refused to go down. "Don't worry, I got this," Danny called out, standing shakily to his feet. His eyes glowed an eerie green. "Stand back." Recognizing the warning, Batman and Robin immediately disengaged, firing their grappling hooks and zipping out of the line of fire. Danny inhaled deeply, his chest swelling with ghostly energy. Then he opened his mouth and unleashed a piercing, supernatural scream that echoed like 1,000 voices layered atop each other. The air shimmered as green sound waves rippled out in a concussive blast, vibrating with raw ectoplasmic energy. The noise hit Killer Croc like a truck, lifting the beast clean off his feet and hurling him across the room. He slammed into the far wall hard enough to crack the concrete, forming an almost cartoonish imprint of his massive body. Croc screeched in agony, clawing at his ears, overwhelmed by the ghostly wail. All around them, windows shattered, shelves collapsed, and light fixtures burst like fireworks. The very air trembled with Danny's power. Shards of glass rained down from the ceiling like lethal confetti, sparkling as they caught the flickering emergency lights. "All right, Danny, that's enough." Batman barked over the shrieking sound, his voice cutting through the chaos like a whip. At the command, Danny gasped and clutched his throat, forcing himself to stop. The last echo of his ghostly cry faded, leaving only the sound of falling debris and Killer Croc's heavy, wheezing breath as he finally slumped to the ground, unconscious. As Danny held his throat, wisps of green ectoplasmic energy curled from the corners of his mouth, flickering like smoke in the cold air. He winced, groaning as the strain from his spectral scream caught up to him. Batman walked silently across the debris-strewn room, his cape trailing behind him. He crouched beside the unconscious Killer Croc and placed 2 fingers against the side of his neck. His cowl lenses narrowed, shifting to a deep crimson as they scanned the reptilian man's vitals and body temperature. After a tense moment, Batman stood, his figure towering in the flickering light. He turned slowly toward Danny, his jaw tight and his eyes narrowed beneath the cowl. "You shouldn't have used that attack on him," Batman said, his voice low and hard. "He was already going down. The sedative was working." Danny blinked, confused and still panting. "What? Why not? Why stall when I can take him down quickly?" His voice slightly hoarse. Batman stepped forward, his presence looming. "Because you don't know what you're doing yet. That kind of power, untrained, uncontrolled, can kill." It nearly ruptured the walls, shattered every piece of glass in the room too. "What happens if next time it hits someone you didn't mean to hurt?" Danny grumbled, knowing Batman had a point. It was risky to use an untested move that could have spiraled out of control. "All right, I understand," he said reluctantly. "Seriously, that's it?" Robin asked casually, leaning against his staff. Danny looked at him in confusion. "I don't know, I just figured you'd argue more," Robin shrugged. "Start a whole back and forth or something." "Because I'm not unreasonable," Danny said, still confused. "I can admit when I'm wrong." He shrugged. "How boring," Robin sighed, resting his arms across his staff now laid over his shoulders. Batman turned his attention back toward Killer Croc before glancing at the boys again. "That's all for now. I need to make sure Jones is properly secured and gets the help he needs." Danny and Robin both nodded in acknowledgement. "Stay on standby. I'll call you again soon," Batman added. With that, Danny and Robin started walking away from the rubble-strewn scene. "What are you doing with your free time?" Robin asked. "Going home. I've got something to take care of." "You?" "Training," Robin replied, then smirked and nudged Danny with an elbow. "That something wouldn't happen to involve the ghost you keep in your basement." Danny rolled his eyes. "Don't word it like that." Robin laughed and spread his arms playfully. All right, but take me home first. It's faster that way." "Whatever," Danny sighed before overshadowing Robin, taking possession of him. Robin's eyes glowed green as he levitated off the ground, turned invisible, and phased through the wall, heading toward the Batcave. Location: Fenton Works. Date: February 17th. Time: 6:34 p.m. Is it done? Is it done? Is it done? Ember shouted, bouncing up and down while gripping Danny's chair. Yeah, it's done, Danny said, spinning slightly in his chair. I had to finish some of it at school, but it's ready. We can post it now. Yippee! Ember cheered, throwing her fist in the air. She shook his chair excitedly. So what are you waiting for? Post it. Hold up, Danny said, holding a hand up. We need someone else's help before we can upload it. Who? Ember asked, tilting her head curiously. Just a friend. Hang on a sec, Danny said, pulling out his phone. He put the call on speaker and held a finger to his lips as it rang. After a few rings, a voice came through, panting and gasping for air. Danny, Tucker finally answered, sounding winded. Tucker, why do you sound like you just ran a marathon? Danny asked, puzzled. Oh, you know, Tucker replied mysteriously. Did you run from your room to the kitchen? Danny teased. Har, har, har. You're just so hilarious, Danny, Tucker replied sarcastically. Well, one of us has to be, Danny shot back with a smirk. Ember giggled quietly in the background. So what do you need? Tucker asked, amusement still in his voice. Okay, listen, I've got a friend. You have friends besides Sam and me? Tucker interrupted, sounding genuinely shocked. Now who's the comedian? Danny scoffed, while Ember chuckled again. Anyway, he continued, we need something uploaded and trending. Can you show me how to do it myself so I don't keep bothering you? Sure, you just gotta play into the algorithm of whatever platform you're using. Here's what you need to do, Tucker began explaining as Danny listened closely. Asterisk 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 asterisk. +10 advanced chapters on patreon.com/shadow_d_monarch3. 18 comments 0 vote. Chapter 38. Teleportation Technique. Third person's POV. Location. Fenton Works. Date. February 28. Time. 1:21 p.m. Danny, look, are you seeing this? Ember exclaimed, practically shoving Danny's computer monitor into his face. He had just finished up in his parents' lab, training and mastering the art of engineering, surrounded by the old designs and gadgets his parents left behind. No, it's too close to my face, Danny muttered awkwardly. Ember had floated down from the ceiling, hanging upside down as she pressed the screen right against him. Oops, she corrected herself and floated upright, hovering above his workstation, which was littered with wires and half-dismantled gadgets. She pointed excitedly at the glowing blue text above the title of her posted song. Do you see this? It says #1 trending. Me, I'm #1 trending. Her voice pitched up an octave with excitement. Her lips trembled, and her fingers shook as she kept pointing at the screen. Danny noticed her teary-eyed expression and smiled. Congratulations. You've worked hard for this, it's well-deserved. You saying stuff like that is cheating. You're trying to make me cry on purpose. She accused, quickly tilting her head back to keep the tears from falling. Just make sure none of those tears land on my monitor. It's still brand new, Danny said, gently taking it from her hand. He glanced up at the long, tangled cord now hanging from the ceiling. He floated upward to fix the setup, Ember following close behind. Be sure to thank that friend of yours for me, all right? Ember said, wiping her eyes. Maybe humans aren't all that bad after all. It's just #1 trending. Aren't you overreacting a little? I'm sure this won't be the last time. Danny shrugged. Ember shook her head. Even if you're right, I'm counting this as my victory. It's only been 4 days since I uploaded the video and it already has close to 1 million views and like 100,000 likes. That's insane. And the comments were all so nice, too. Then, with a determined look in her eye, she added, I need to keep going. More songs, more fire, I can't get complacent now. She smiled at Danny. But first, what I promised you. You kept your end of the deal, so it's time I kept mine. I'll teach you that teleportation technique. She grabbed Danny's hand. Come on. With a puff, they vanished in a swirl of pink smoke. Dash. Alright, so how did that feel? Ember asked. Weird, I can't really describe it. Try to remember the feeling, she said, hands on her hips, floating a few inches off the ground. That's step 1. You've gotta imprint that sensation, like muscle memory, but for your ghost core. Danny raised an eyebrow. You realize I barely even understand how my ghost core works, right? That's what I'm here for, dummy, Ember said, bonking his forehead gently with her finger. A tiny spark of ectoplasmic energy fizzled where she touched him. Now, close your eyes. Focus. Remember that feeling, like your body's stretching and folding in on itself at the same time, but not in a painful way. Danny blinked. That sounds horrifying. It kinda is at first, but you get used to it. Now concentrate. Visualize where you want to go, like 10 feet to the left. Danny closed his eyes, hovered in the air, and furrowed his brow. 10 feet to the left, fold in, stretch out, become a weird ghost burrito. A puff of smoke popped. Nothing happened. He opened one eye and looked around. Still in the same spot. Ember crossed her arms. Danny, that was your attempt. I think something popped. Internally. Yeah, that was probably your pride, she said, smirking. Again. Danny grumbled and tried again, gritting his teeth. Still nothing. Not even a spark. He repeated the process, again and again, with no results. Finally, standing with his legs spread, fists clenched, Danny began to glow. A green aura of ectoplasmic energy swirled around him. His snow-white hair defied gravity, strands waving in the air. His eyes pulsed with eerie green light. MMMMHMMM, he rumbled. Ah, ah. Ember just stood there, staring at him blankly, blinking slowly. Why are you screaming? She finally yelled, clearly annoyed. I thought if I screamed loud enough, I'd unlock a new power. You know, like with the ghostly wail last time, Danny explained with a shrug. He let out a sigh and stood back up. Ember pinched the bridge of her nose and floated over to Danny, placing a hand on his shoulder. Have you ever considered that maybe you just have zero affinity for teleportation? Nope, Danny said confidently, shaking his head without hesitation. Ember blinked at his unwavering certainty. As much as I admire your self-confidence, maybe it's time you start doubting yourself. Just a little. Nah, Danny waved her off. If I don't have an affinity, I'll just make one. Ember tilted her head, frowning. Danny, what does that even mean? It means I'll work hard enough until my ghost powers have to adapt and give me teleportation, he said with a grin and a thumbs up. That's not. I don't think that's how it works, Danny. As a great man once said, and who decided that? He shot back proudly. Ember raised her hands and sighed. You know what, Danny? Knock yourself out. Why would I do that? That sounds highly counterproductive, Danny replied, his lips twitching as he tried to suppress a smile. Ember stared at him, deadpan and unimpressed. Sorry, he chuckled. His expression softened as he looked down at his hand, opening and closing it slowly into a fist. Maybe it's my ectoplasm control. Or maybe the teleportation method you're teaching just doesn't mesh with me. But I'd rather explore 100 different possibilities than sit around saying I don't have talent. Ember raised an eyebrow, her expression shifting slightly. I'm not saying this out of arrogance, Danny added quickly. I just believe hard work beats talent. Every time. Blaming a lack of talent feels like a cop-out to me. If I give it my all and still get nowhere, fine, at least I'll know I tried. Ember looked at him, her gaze drifting down to the serious way he clenched his fist. Her ghostly heart skipped a beat as she quickly shut her eyes, trying to push away the feeling. Damn it, why does he have to look and sound so cool when he says stuff like that? She sighed and dropped her hands to her sides. Alright, maybe you're onto something. Maybe it's not you, it's the method. There are other ways to teleport. I sometimes use the fire in my hair, for example. So let's figure out the style that works best for you. I'll help you however I can, at least until the end of today. I won't be available next week. Huh, why not? Danny asked, curious. I want to focus on writing a new song, Ember said. Like I said earlier, I gotta strike while the fire's hot. That works out, actually. I won't be around next week either, Danny replied with a nod. Seriously? Ember asked, a little surprised. Danny nodded. Batman told me to clear my schedule. I'm going on a business trip. To where? No clue. Asterisk 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 asterisk. +10 advanced chapters on patreon.com/shadow_d_monarch3. 14 comments 0 vote. Chapter 39, Star City. Third person's POV. Location, Wayne's limousine. Date, March 1st. Time, 7:59 am. Both Danny and Dick sat in the back of a sleek limousine, facing none other than billionaire playboy Bruce Wayne. The blurry figures of cars and traffic flickered past the tinted windows as the car glided smoothly through the streets. Bruce turned to Danny, his gaze calm but calculating. What excuse did you give your friends for missing school this week? You need to remember, being able to think on your feet and craft believable stories is an essential skill. Danny waved him off, resting his head against the window with a faint frown. I just told them the truth. That I'm fulfilling my duties as the ward of Bruce Wayne. Said I'm shadowing you to learn how to be an entrepreneur or whatever. Bruce allowed himself a subtle smile. Danny's reluctance to lie to his friends, while inconvenient, was a trait he secretly respected. Not that he'd ever admit it. And you? Bruce asked, shifting his attention to Dick, though he already expected the answer. Dick leaned back, one leg crossed over the other. I made sure my story matched Danny's. Don't worry. Besides, I'm honestly relieved to get a break from school. It's not the physical stuff, it's mentally draining. Danny nodded in agreement. Yeah, seriously. Then he glanced toward Bruce, brow furrowed. You never actually said where we're going. Just that we'd be gone a week and I should come up with a cover story. Dick perked up too, curiosity piqued. It wasn't like Bruce to pull them away from Gotham without reason. We're going to Star City, Bruce said flatly. Both boys blinked in surprise. Star City? Danny echoed. Why? Do you actually have business stuff to handle, or is this another one of those, Bruce Wayne needs to be seen, things? Bruce's tone was even, but his gaze lingered on Danny longer than it had on Dick. Yes and no, I do have meetings to attend as Wayne Enterprises CEO. But the real reason we're going, is for you. Danny sat up straighter. Me? Why? Bruce folded his hands. Your powers are progressing fast. Too fast. Before you've even mastered your current abilities, new ones are emerging. We're going to focus on the one you have the least control over. The one you've been calling, the ghostly whale. Dick's eyes lit up with realization. Black Canary. We're meeting with her, aren't we? Bruce nodded once. She's perfect, Dick added. She'll be a great teacher for Danny. Plus, I'll get to see Speedy, been a while since we've crossed paths. He. Danny suddenly giggled, his tone weirdly mischievous. He hunched over and pulled out a notepad and pen from seemingly nowhere. I'll finally get more autographs. Bruce and Dick just stared. Then glanced at each other, silently communicating with a single look that said, should we be concerned? Danny looked down at the notepad in his hands, then slowly held it out to Bruce, cheeks flushing pink. I never actually got your autograph. It'd mean a lot. Dick immediately turned away, muffling a laugh. PFTTT, right. I forgot you once said Batman was your favorite hero. Didn't you rank him #1 on that list you made? Dude, Danny shot him a glare. He didn't need to know that. Dick stuck out his tongue playfully. Bruce raised an eyebrow, amused. He accepted the notepad and pen with a faint smirk. An honor to meet such a dedicated fan. I'll make sure this autograph is worthy of my #1 admirer. You, Danny groaned, covering his face. Forget you ever heard that. Dick's dyslexic, he doesn't even know what he hears half the time. Dick blinked. 1, I'm not dyslexic. And 2, even if I were, what does that have to do with hearing? Bruce let out a small, rare chuckle. At the front of the car, Alfred glanced up in the rear-view mirror. A soft smile touched his face as he observed the exchange. Young Master Daniel truly is a remarkable addition to this family, Alfred mused. Exactly what each of them needed. Location, Star City. Date, March 1st. Time, 9:03 am. A sleek limousine pulled to a graceful stop in front of a towering hotel in Star City. The building oozed elegance and wealth, its glistening windows reflecting the golden hour light like a beacon for the rich and powerful. Alfred, ever the embodiment of poise, stepped out first and made his way to the rear door. With a practiced bow and subtle flourish, he opened it. Bruce Wayne stepped out smoothly, leading the trio. One polished shoe touched the pavement before he rose to full height, adjusting his cufflinks with effortless charm. Cameras immediately began flashing, hungry to capture Gotham's billionaire playboy in the wild. Right behind him came Dick and Danny, both donning sleek black three-piece suits tailored to perfection. The moment Danny exited the vehicle, he flashed an exaggerated grin so wide and gleaming, it could have made All Might look subtle. Dick immediately jabbed an elbow into his side. "What the hell was that? You look like you're either selling toothpaste or fighting for your life on the toilet." Danny, unbothered, kept the grin up a moment longer for the flashing cameras. "Just giving them the full celebrity experience. You know, for PR. Yeah, well, dial it back before someone thinks you're malfunctioning," Dick muttered, rolling his eyes. "We seriously need to workshop your public image." "Your face needs more work than my image," Danny shot back with a playful scoff, though his confident act faltered ever so slightly under the constant barrage of camera flashes and media attention. His fingers subtly fidgeted at his sides. Being thrust into the spotlight like this wasn't something he was used to, not in either of his lives. Fortunately, their time outside was brief. Just enough for the press to snap a few pictures, confirm their presence, and make headlines. Once inside, past the glinting marble floors and through the revolving doors, Danny leaned slightly toward Bruce and asked, "So what's the reason Bruce Wayne needs to make an appearance?" Bruce didn't stop walking as he replied. "Wayne Enterprises and Queen Industries are finalizing a formal partnership. There's a major charity gala to cement the alliance. It's mostly for optics, but the cause is genuine: youth rehabilitation and community rebuilding. I don't mind showing my face for that." As Bruce headed to finalize their hotel arrangements with the concierge, Danny leaned in toward Dick and whispered, "I'll bet you $20 something insane happens at that gala." Dick frowned. "Why do you say that? Did you pick up on something?" Danny simply smirked. "Nope, just playing the odds. It's too cliché not to happen." Dick stared at him flatly. "Danny, this is real life, not a Saturday morning cartoon. Clichés don't just." Sounding a lot like someone who's afraid to lose a bet, Danny teased, raising a brow. Dick narrowed his eyes. "You're on. If the event goes off without any explosions, kidnappings, or rooftop chase scenes, I win." Danny extended his hand. "Shake on it." With a slight roll of his eyes, Dick shook his hand firmly. "Deal." The wager was set. Asterisk 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 asterisk. +10 advanced chapters on patreon.com/shadow_d_monarch3. 12 comments 0 vote. Chapter 40. The Dark Knight in Star City. Third person's POV. Location: Star City. Date: March 1st. Time: 6:05 p.m. When the sun dipped below the horizon and dusk crept in, that's when the shadows stirred. That's when the beings that thrived in darkness awakened. Rain fell over Star City like a curtain, casting the metropolis into an early night. Sheets of water shimmered beneath the streetlights, and the rhythmic patter of droplets drowned out the usual hum of urban life. But not everything stopped for the storm. Some moved within it. Some moved because of it. Rain didn't hinder them, it cloaked them. It muffled their steps, blurred their outlines, and made them ghosts among men. 3 shadows darted across the rooftops. Boots splashed through gathering puddles, figures leaping from ledge to ledge, their silhouettes briefly framed in flashes of lightning before vanishing again into the murk. From the top of a looming skyscraper, a dark figure leapt, his cape unfurling with practiced grace, transforming into a glider that caught the air and carried him silently forward, a phantom in the sky. Moments later, another figure soared after him, brighter, bolder. Clad in primary colors and grinning wide, the boy flipped through the air with fearless precision, arms stretched out like wings. Then, hands met midair. Another presence, colder, quieter, intercepted the boy's fall. Pale arms grasped his forearms, holding firm. Snow-white hair and a flickering, ghostly tail revealed the third of their trio, a phantom boy who flew with effortless grace, carrying the boy wonder through the rain. Ahead, the caped crusader aimed high, firing a grappling hook toward the tallest spire in sight, a green-tipped tower piercing the clouds like a spear. The boy wonder began to swing back and forth repeatedly, building momentum. Then, with a sharp twist and a release, he flipped through the air, drawing his own grapple and latching onto another point, his arc tracing perfectly behind his mentor. Meanwhile, the ghost boy vanished, his form fading into nothing, lost to the rain and night. The dark knight landed silently atop a stone gargoyle, crouched low, his cape wrapping around him like a shadow made flesh. His eyes, pure white slits, glowed faintly in the downpour. To his right, the boy wonder landed in unison, baton drawn, standing tall upon another gargoyle, his own eyes flashing white with resolve. And to the left, from the base of a third gargoyle, an apparition emerged, phasing up through solid stone like mist rising from the earth. He solidified with eerie green eyes casting an otherworldly glow, completing the triangle. And together, the three figures gazed down at the scene unfolding beneath them. Through the haze of rain and rooftop shadows, a group clad in dark, ninja-like attire danced across the rooftop in deadly motion. But they weren't alone, and this wasn't just a covert maneuver. It was a brawl. Three figures stood against the assault of assailants. The first was a broad-shouldered man in a green and black suit, a green hood veiling most of his face. Yet, strands of golden blonde hair and a matching beard peeked through, unmistakably identifying him. A bow rested firmly in his grip, and a quiver was slung over his back, green arrow. Beside him, a boy in red, a bright contrast to the stormy night, moved with uncanny precision. A yellow 16th century style cap with a feather topped his head, matching his gloves, boots, and belt. Like his mentor, he wielded a bow with practiced ease, speedy. Guarding their flank was a striking blonde woman in a black bustier leotard beneath a blue lapelled jacket. Gray-seamed stockings clung to her legs, leading into sturdy black boots. Black fingerless gloves extended to her biceps, and a choker wrapped her neck. With a breath and a sharp cry, she unleashed a canary-like sonic scream that parted the rain in a shockwave, flinging ninjas back as water exploded away from her. Black Canary. "Should we join in?" Danny asked, leaning forward with a subtle smirk. "Don't." Batman lowered his binoculars and narrowed his eyes at the chaos below. "We need to know who we're dealing with before we intervene. Judging by their fighting style, weapons, and formation, League of Assassins," Batman concluded, voice calm but firm. Danny cracked his knuckles. "Now do we jump in?" Batman glanced around, confirming no unexpected variables for a couple of long seconds. Then he nodded once. "Now." Without another word, he launched himself into the storm, cape billowing like wings. Robin and Danny followed, rain streaking across their faces as they dove through the darkness. Batman landed like thunder, his impact silencing the battlefield. Two assassins went down before they could blink, knocked out cold. He stood slowly, cape flowing around him, the very image of fear incarnate. "Batman!" Green Arrow and Black Canary exclaimed, startled. The League hesitated, wary now. Their formation broke slightly at the sight of the Dark Knight. Then chaos erupted. Robin landed like a flash, boots hitting the back of an assassin. The ninja crumpled, and Robin rolled forward with fluid grace, springing up and laughing with wild glee. His bow staff spun in a blur, cracking against the next attacker's ribs, sending him flying into a nearby vent. Meanwhile, one assassin's eyes glowed green. Without warning, he turned on his comrade and drove a blade into his leg. "Wah!" the assassin gasped before collapsing on one knee. Danny stood behind them, eyes glowing briefly before fading. "Possession. Old trick," he muttered with a grin. The League descended into disarray. Robin and Danny moved like mirror images, back to back in perfect rhythm. One ducked, the other leapt. One swept the legs, the other struck high. Robin vaulted off Danny's back, kicking a ninja square in the jaw, while Danny phased through an attack, then turned solid mid-move to deliver a crushing elbow. "You're not bad," Robin called over his shoulder. "Try to keep up," Danny shot back. They weaved through the League like wind through trees, fluid, fast, and unstoppable. Batman, now amidst the chaos, disarmed and disabled opponents with clinical precision. His strikes were efficient, his movement economical. Every motion had purpose. Every takedown was final. "Looks like you brought the cavalry," Green Arrow muttered, shooting down a foe before turning to cover Black Canary. Robin caught a blade mid-swing with his staff, twisting it free before flipping over his opponent and planting a boot to his spine. "You're welcome." Danny floated upward, spinning midair as he fired a concentrated ectoblast, sending another ninja hurtling into a skylight. He landed next to Robin, grinning. "That all of them?" A sudden rustle behind them, 2 more assassins. Robin tossed a smoke pellet, blinding them. Danny phased behind them, tapping each on the shoulder before knocking them out cold. Robin twirled his staff and holstered it with a spin. "Show off," says the guy in tights, Danny replied, smirking. Batman stepped forward, glancing over the fallen foes, then at the trio they had saved. Green Arrow, Black Canary, Speedy, he acknowledged with a nod. "Batman," Canary said, brushing wet hair from her face. "So this is the new recruit you mentioned." Danny looked a bit surprised and batted his eyes. "You talked about me to the others." Batman didn't say anything and just responded to Canary's statement with a grunt. Lightning flashed, illuminating the rooftop battlefield, now littered with unconscious assassins. "Prepare yourselves, more are coming," Batman added, already turning to the next rooftop. Danny and Robin shared a look, already moving in perfect sync. "Let's clean up the rest," Robin said. Danny nodded. "Race you." With a flash of green and a flurry of red, they disappeared into the rain once more, ghost and shadow. Asterisk 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 asterisk. +10 advanced chapters on patreon.com/shadow_d_monarch3. 16 comments 0 vote. Chapter 41, Circlement. Third person's POV. Danny and the other heroes stood back to back in a tight circular formation, each of them covering a direction as more members of the League of Assassins closed in from all sides. The rain poured heavily, soaking them to the bone and making strands of hair cling to their faces. "Just for the record," Danny said, slicking his dripping hair out of his eyes with a grin, "my name's Danny Fenton. Nice to meet everyone." Green Arrow let out a short chuckle, pulling an arrow from his quiver and smoothly knocking it to his bow. "What an amicable kid you've got there, Bats. Name's Green Arrow." Black Canary cast Danny a brief glance and smiled. "You can call me Black Canary." Speedy, the younger archer muttered after a slight pause, mirroring his mentor's stance and preparing his bow. The League of Assassins didn't wait for Batman or Robin to speak, not that they would have. With a sharp cry, the assassins surged forward, blades, chains, and smoke bombs in hand. A chained mace cut through the air toward Danny with a whirring shriek. But Danny didn't flinch. He raised his arm, letting the chain coil around his forearm. With a grunt, he yanked it, supernatural strength rippling through his frame. The assassin on the other end was ripped off his feet, sent hurtling through the air straight toward Danny, who stepped forward and delivered a powerful uppercut, slamming the man to the rooftop with a splash of water and a bone-jarring groan. Robin stepped forward, spinning his metal staff. He blocked a slash from a katana, redirecting it away before sweeping his feet with the staff. Mid-fall, cracking the staff down, driving him into the ground. Batman didn't speak. He never did in moments like these. His fists did all the talking, grappling an assassin mid-leap, slamming him into the wall, then turning to block a dagger strike with his gauntlet before countering with a brutal elbow. To their left, Black Canary let out a controlled scream, the sonic blast launching 3 attackers backward like rag dolls. Green Arrow fired 3 arrows in quick succession, each one hitting its target with pinpoint accuracy. One pinning an assassin's hand to a metal vent, another disabling a sword with a flashbang tip, and the last hitting an assailant's leg, sending him tumbling to the wet rooftop. Speedy wasn't far behind, covering his mentor's blind spot, sending arrows flying with mechanical precision. Each shot was calculated, each impact disabling or disarming an attacker with ruthless efficiency. Meanwhile, Danny's hands began to pulse with an eerie green light, the same hue flickering in his eyes. In the darkness, the glow cast sharp shadows across his face, making him look otherworldly, ghost-like. Then came the storm. With a roar, Danny fired rapid pulses of ecto-rays from his palms, each blast whistling through the rain-soaked air. He spun and weaved as he attacked, catching an assassin mid-leap and sending him crashing to the rooftop with a hiss of steam as the ectoplasmic energy met wet stone. But the League of Assassins were no fools. They didn't simply charge blindly into the barrage. They ducked, rolled, and flipped through the onslaught with deadly grace, closing the gap between the heroes and their prey. A cluster of shurikens came spinning toward Danny, their metal edges glinting in a brief flash of lightning. With barely a thought, Danny conjured a translucent shield of ectoplasm. It flared to life just in time, the glowing barrier absorbing the impacts with a hiss and a flicker. His superhuman reflexes kicked in, he shifted his stance, his shield rotating to intercept each incoming blade, knocking them aside with practiced precision. One assassin tried to flank him while he was occupied, leaping from the shadows with twin daggers raised. But Danny twisted his body, letting the attack phase through him. He turned, phased back into solidity mid-spin, and slammed a glowing elbow into the attacker's back, sending him sprawling. "Come on, this is just too easy," he muttered with a confident grin. On the opposite side of the circle, Black Canary caught his eye and gave him an approving nod before ducking under a sword slash and delivering a devastating roundhouse kick. Green Arrow loosed another arrow, this one exploding in a cloud of smoke, giving them a moment of breathing room. But the shadows shifted again, more assassins emerging, silent and deadly, their movements as fluid as the rain that poured around them. Robin gritted his teeth. "They're testing our perimeter, looking for cracks." "We don't give them any," Batman said, voice firm and unreadable behind the cowl. He disarmed an attacker with a precise nerve strike, then spun and took another down with a sweep of his cape and a punishing punch. Danny inhaled sharply. The thrill of the fight, the rush of power, it was exhilarating. The roar of the rain only added to the chaos, but he could feel the energy in his core building, begging to be unleashed. "Cover my spot," he shouted to Batman, his eyes flaring with green light. "Standing in one place doesn't work for me." Without waiting for a response, Danny pumped his fist down one at them, like revving a supernatural engine. A surge of ectoplasmic energy flared out, and both of his fists erupted into vibrant green flames that shimmered in the rain like ghostly fire. Then he blasted forward, defying gravity, his body leaving behind a glowing trail as he took flight. The air cracked with the force of his acceleration, sending ripples through the puddles below. The assassins ahead barely had time to react. Danny's fist collided with the chest of the first one, sending him flying backward into two more. His momentum didn't stop, he twisted midair, spinning with a wide, flaming backhand that scorched through the next attacker's staff and knocked him unconscious with a violent thud. One leapt from behind, twin daggers aimed for Danny's back. Danny phased instantly. The assassin passed right through him, his momentum carrying him off balance, and Danny reappeared behind him, catching him by the collar and hurling him down to the rooftop with crushing force. "Let's keep this momentum going." Danny cheered with a wide grin, "I'm on a roll right now." From the rooftop, the rest of the heroes caught flashes of Danny's strikes, green light flaring in rhythmic bursts through the veil of rain. He was a blur, a streak of glowing energy ripping through the remaining assassins like a tempest of wrath and precision. Green Arrow blinked. "Okay, that kid's pretty impressive. Where did you find him? Do you think I could get one of my own?" "Need I remind you that your protege is standing right here?" Speedy retorted in annoyance. Black Canary gave a faint smirk. "You sure he's the kid you said needed my guidance? He seems to be doing well for himself." Batman, watching carefully, didn't speak, but his eyes narrowed with both approval and calculation. Little by little, the number of assassins began to dwindle. The rooftop was littered with their unconscious and bleeding bodies, the rain turning crimson as it mixed with the blood and ran in rivulets to the edges. Every step now came with a splash, and the low hum of the city below seemed almost distant compared to the storm and aftermath above. Danny caught a fist wielding a sigh, the blade gleaming for a split second before he twisted the arm with supernatural strength. Bones snapped audibly, piercing the assassin's flesh as a scream tore through the rain-soaked air. "Seriously, how fragile," Danny muttered with a frown. And he meant it. He effortlessly swung the wounded man around, placed a hand against his chest, and released a controlled blast of ectoplasmic energy. It wasn't enough to pierce him, but it sent the assassin flying, crashing into the last remaining enemy with a painful thud. Smoke rose in wisps from charred clothes and scorched metal, remnants of Danny's ectoblasts. The rain hissed against the ghostly energy, and steam coiled lazily into the night sky. The heroes slowly caught their breath, except for Batman, who remained as still and composed as ever, his cape soaked but unbothered. Batman turned his gaze toward Green Arrow, his tone calm but sharp. Do you know why the League would deploy such a force against you? Green Arrow sighed in frustration and nodded. Yeah, most likely Merlin. He has this habit of testing me while trying to kill me at the same time. He sends these squads to gauge my progress, see how much stronger I've gotten, before attempting to finish me off himself. You're certain? Batman asked, his eyes narrowing slightly. Absolutely. That bastard does this all the time, Green Arrow scoffed. Wouldn't be surprised if he shows up in person in a few days. While the veteran spoke, Robin made his way over to Danny, who had perched himself on top of a tall ventilation unit, legs swinging as he watched the group from above. Despite the rain, a mischievous grin lingered on his face. Leaning against the tall ventilation shaft, Robin asked, "So what did you think? I'm guessing this was your first time fighting a group like that. You've mostly dealt with solo enemies before, right?" It was exhilarating, Danny grinned, crossing one leg over his knee while letting the other swing freely. I can still feel the adrenaline, if I even still have that in this form. Nice work out there, Robin said, tapping Danny's hanging leg with a smirk. Speedy stepped forward and frowned at Batman. What are you doing here, anyway? This isn't your city, shouldn't you be in Gotham? Batman didn't answer. He simply stared at Speedy in silence. Speedy held his ground, mostly. Maybe he was a little intimidated, but he didn't show it. Batman turned toward Green Arrow and Black Canary. Right, sorry, forgot to mention. Green Arrow said, smacking his forehead. Batman told us he's taken in a new kid, he gestured toward Danny, and figured he'd benefit a lot from Canary's training. So, he'll be hanging around for a while. Better get used to him. Speedy glanced from Danny to Batman, then nodded awkwardly. Before we continue, Green Arrow added, I like the rain as much as the next guy, but maybe we should take this conversation somewhere dry. Come on, I'll take you to my hideout. Asterisk 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 asterisk. +10 advanced chapters on patreon.com/shadow_d_monarch3. 11 comments 0 vote. Chapter 42, The Arrow Cave. Third person's POV. Location, Green Arrow's hideout. Date, March 1st. Time, 7:34 p.m. Welcome to the Arrow Cave. Green Arrow announced with a wide grin, spinning around dramatically with his arms stretched open. The hideout was divided into several sections, each tailored for a specific purpose. One corner housed multiple computers and monitors displaying a detailed map of Star City. Nearby was a workstation with various arrowheads and spare bows, neatly arranged and safely secured, clearly serving as both a workshop for crafting new gear and a storage space. Another section was filled with training equipment and targets, designed to keep skills sharp and bodies in shape. Danny looked around, taking it all in. His eyes lingered on the large Green Arrow logo that dominated the ceiling. It wasn't bad at all, actually, it was pretty awesome. It had everything a proper superhero hideout should have. But then, he placed his hands on his hips, his shoulders slumped, and he let out a deep, disappointed sigh. What? Green Arrow froze, confused by Danny's expression. You don't like the place? Speedy narrowed his eyes into slits, frowning at Danny's reaction. He didn't appreciate someone walking into their base and looking disappointed. No, don't get me wrong. The place is great, fantastic, even, Danny said quickly, his expression serious. But, the Arrow Cave. Are you serious? Now Speedy looked just as confused as he did annoyed. That wasn't the critique he expected. What's wrong with the Arrow Cave? Green Arrow frowned. I think it's a solid name. Yeah, if you're unoriginal, Danny scoffed, briefly glancing toward Black Canary, who let out a small snicker. Oh yeah, Green Arrow challenged. What would you have named it, then? Danny exhaled sharply, shaking his head like he couldn't believe what he was hearing. Your name is Green Arrow, he emphasized dramatically with his hands. And where do you store arrows? Where do you secure them? In a quiver. He placed his hands on his waist again, shaking his head in disappointment. Total wasted opportunity. Seriously, Green Arrow opened his mouth to argue but came up empty. After a few seconds, he sighed and muttered, "Damn, the quiver does sound better." Speedy blinked, looking from Danny to Robin in disbelief. Robin only offered a wry smile. "Let's just say Danny has his quirks. Anyways," Danny said, suddenly levitating off the ground and floating over to Green Arrow with a pen and notepad in hand. "Can I get your autograph, please?" Green Arrow blinked, caught off guard, then smiled charmingly. "A fan, are you? Ho ho ho, if it's an autograph you want, who am I to say no?" "Thank you, Mr. Gah," Danny beamed, clutching the signed notepad. Then he zipped over to Black Canary, his cheeks flushing a little. "Yours too, pretty please." Black Canary raised an eyebrow at him but smiled, and Danny just swayed slightly in place, totally starstruck. Just, wow, he thought. Batman stood silently, mentally noting to have a serious talk with Danny about proper behavior later. Once Danny had Black Canary's signature, he turned to Speedy. The two locked eyes silently. And then, Danny calmly tucked away his notepad and completely ignored him. A flicker of irritation crossed Speedy's face. What the hell is this kid's problem? Before he could voice that thought, Batman cut in, on to important matters. "Robin and I won't be able to stay long, we still have Gotham to protect. I trust you'll look after him during the week." Danny blinked in surprise. "I'm being left behind." His voice softened, and everyone could practically see the sad puppy eyes forming. "I don't stand to gain anything from staying here to babysit you," Batman began. "Ouch," Danny muttered, clutching his chest theatrically. "You could have worded that better. Gotham can't go unprotected. You need to remain here and train. Afterwards, you know where to go. Listen to your mentors. Am I clear?" "Yes, Father," Danny replied sarcastically. Robin stifled a laugh. Green Arrow let out a loud one. Batman remained unamused. He turned to Black Canary. "Report to me on his progress." She nodded. With that, Batman turned on his heel, cape flaring behind him. "Let's go, Robin." Robin gave quick farewells to Speedy and Danny before following. "I feel like a little kid getting dropped off at daycare," Danny muttered. Black Canary heard him and walked over, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Shall we get started with your training?" "Sure," Danny nodded, ready to begin. "While you guys do that, Speedy and I are heading out for city surveillance," Green Arrow said, patting Speedy on the shoulder. Danny and Black Canary stood in the training section of the Arrow Cave. "I see, so you named your attack, Ghostly Whale, can I see it?" Black Canary asked. Danny took a deep breath, his eyes glowing green for a second as he focused. The energy built up in his chest, then surged upward. He opened his mouth and released a powerful ghostly wail, a reverberating sonic blast that cracked the walls, shattered the target into splinters, and sent a gust of wind whipping through the room. Black Canary didn't flinch, though her eyes widened slightly at the raw force of it. Once the echoes died down, she gave an approving nod. "Impressive," she said, walking forward. "But also extremely unrefined. You're pouring everything into volume and force. That'll drain your energy fast." Danny winced, holding his chest. "Yeah, it does kinda knock the wind out of me." Canary circled him thoughtfully. "We're going to work on that. Control, not just power. Think of it like a blade, sharp and focused, not a bomb. I've trained with my canary cry for years. If you're willing to listen, I can help you refine yours into something precise and devastating, without you getting winded with every attack." Danny grinned, despite himself. "Sounds good to me. Where do we start?" Black Canary smirked. "With breathing. Always with breathing." Black Canary moved to the center of the training mat and motioned for Danny to follow. "Alright, first things first," she said, taking a stance. "Your voice is your weapon, but your core is your power source. Without proper control over your breath and posture, you're just shouting into the wind." Danny mimicked her stance, feet shoulder-width apart, knees slightly bent, arms relaxed at his sides. "Now, inhale through your nose, deep into your diaphragm. Hold it, then slowly release through your mouth. No sound, just feel the control." Danny followed her lead, focusing on his breath. After a few cycles, he nodded. "Okay, got it. Good. Now when you charge up the ghostly wail, don't just blast it all out. Visualize your voice like a wave, not an explosion. You want to push it out in controlled bursts." Danny gave her a skeptical look. "You make it sound easy." Canary smirked. It's not, but that's what training is for. She stepped back and pointed at a row of reinforced dummies. Try again. This time, give me a short burst, focused on a single target. Don't empty the tank. Danny nodded. Green mist gathered in his chest and throat, but instead of unleashing the full whale, he tightened his stance, narrowed his focus, and released a quick, controlled sonic blast. It hit one dummy dead center, sending it flying across the room while the others remained untouched. Black Canary smiled. That's what I'm talking about. Controlled. Efficient. Danny blinked, impressed. That felt way easier. I'm not even winded. Exactly. Now, again, same power, but angle it downward. I want to see if you can knock something off balance without demolishing it. Danny took aim at a stacked pillar of crates. This time, he focused the energy toward the lower half. A sharp, compressed wail fired off, knocking out the bottom crates and causing the rest to collapse without breaking apart. Canary gave a low, impressed whistle. You've got talent, kid. With enough practice, you might even learn to bend the direction mid-cry. But that's advanced. Danny laughed. Let's work our way there. This already feels like a game changer. Black Canary gave him a firm nod. Good. Keep practicing precision. Once you master that, we'll move on to frequency modulation. Danny blinked. Wait, you can change the frequency. Canary raised a brow. Oh, we're just getting started. He grinned, cracking his knuckles. Bring it on. Asterisk 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 asterisk. +10 advanced chapters on patreon.com/shadow_d_monarch3. 16 comments 0 vote. Chapter 43. Vocal Training. Third Person's POV. Location. The Arrow Cave. Date. March 1st. Time. 8:23 p.m. Danny floated in the air, just a few feet above the training mat, and took a deep breath. The steady rhythm of inhaling through his nose and exhaling through his mouth grounded him. He let all of Black Canary's guidance from the past hour sink in, the control, the breathing, the focus. His eyes glowed a faint green as he looked at the row of flying drones zipping through the air, each moving in erratic patterns. Black Canary stood below, arms folded, watching with a keen eye. Remember, she called up, precision, not pressure. Make your voice work for you. Danny nodded, cupping his hands around his mouth and channeling the energy. This time, he didn't build it up like a tidal wave. Instead, he shaped it, aimed it, and released a clean, razor-sharp wail, just enough to clip the wing of one of the drones. The drone sparked and spiraled to the ground. Two more zipped in from opposite sides. Danny twisted in the air and released two short bursts of sound, each angled and controlled. Both drones were knocked out mid-flight without disturbing the surrounding training equipment. Black Canary smirked. You're getting the hang of it. You've trimmed your energy use by more than half. You are strangely a very quick learner. You have potential, I'll tell you that. Danny landed and grinned, a light mist of ghostly energy still trailing from his breath. It feels like I'm directing the attack now, instead of just letting it explode out of me. That's the point, she said, walking over. A scream without control is just noise. But a focused cry, that's a weapon. She picked up a remote and tapped a button. New targets rose from the floor, moving dummies on tracks, metal panels rotating and changing angles. Danny's brows raised slightly, but he took to the air again. Now I want you to knock down the tall targets, disable the ones with red lights, and avoid the ones with blue. Let's see how sharp that aim really is. Danny's body glowed as he phased slightly into his ghost form, then took a deep breath. A sonic burst knocked down two tall dummies, but a blue light target passed through his field of vision. He sucked in the next blast and redirected it just in time, only the red light target took the hit. Black Canary raised an eyebrow. Nice save. Danny panted slightly but nodded. That took more thought than I expected. Good. You're building instinct now. One more round. This time, Danny incorporated movement, flying in circles, weaving between obstacles while launching wails in midair. With each pass, his aim sharpened, his bursts tighter, more refined. A final twisting spin launched a cone-shaped whale that toppled the last moving target without touching the blue ones. He landed with a heavy exhale, knees bent, catching his breath. All that ectoplasmic energy he was releasing was taking a toll on his stamina. Black Canary handed him a towel. "You've got raw power, Danny. But now you're starting to turn it into a skill. Still, you're not even close to being done." Danny wiped his forehead. "Didn't think so." She stepped in front of him and adjusted his stance slightly. "If you want to hit targets at different ranges, you'll need to learn modulation. Lower frequencies for shockwaves, higher for piercing through material. Same technique, just adjust the depth of your breath and the shape of your mouth." Danny blinked. "Wait, I can change what the whale does." "You can do more than just scream things into dust," she said, smirking. "Watch." She took a breath and released a precise, high-frequency canary cry at one of the walls. The frequency didn't destroy it, it resonated through it. The lights on the other side flickered. "You control what you want the sound to do," she said. "Wreck, disrupt, shatter, it's all about intent and control." Danny took another breath and tried again, this time narrowing his lips and shifting the pitch of his wail. The blast rang out, higher and sharper, and a hanging drone above him vibrated violently before shorting out and falling. Black Canary gave an approving nod but also a weird look. "There it is. Seriously, where did Batman find this kid?" Danny let out a low laugh, still catching his breath. "You really know your stuff." "I've had years to master it," she said. "And now, what you need is some real-world experience." He blinked. "Wait, now, seriously, no offense but isn't that a bit too earlier? It hasn't even really been hours since I started." She pointed toward the exit. "The storm's calmed down, just a light rain now. You're ready for fieldwork, nothing dangerous. Just patrol and application, and don't worry about I'll be there to cover for you if you mess up. What you need more than anything is experience." Danny blinked and began to question himself, why is it going so easy for me? I had trouble with my flames and my manipulation of ectoplasma before. Danny slowly came to a dawning realization, my effectiveness of my ability to manipulate ectoplasmic energy has improved, that's why it seems to have gotten easier. Compared to 2 months ago, the difference between skill level is as clear as night and day. Especially when I've been under someone like Batman. After reveling on the thought for a few seconds, Danny followed after Black Canary out of the Arrow Cave. A quick trip soon took them to a rooftop in Star City. The rain came down gently, painting the pavement with a glossy sheen. Streetlights reflected softly in the puddles. The wind was cool, the air crisp. "All right," she said, straightening her jacket. "Your job, use what you've learned. Listen, observe, and act. No big shows, no overkill." Danny nodded as he floated in place, his ghost tail dancing beneath him. "Got it." They leapt off the rooftop, gliding from building to building. Danny flew just above the ground at one point, using subtle ghost wails to disorient a group of carjackers before they even realized he was there. Black Canary took down another with a swift kick, nodding at Danny as they regrouped. They passed by a flooded alley where a kid was stuck behind debris. Danny hovered above the blockage, let out a small, focused wail that dislodged it without harming anything else. The kid scrambled free. They continued the exercise for a while, and by the time they circled back to the rooftops, the rain had slowed to a mist. Black Canary looked over at him. "Well," Danny exhaled, the faint mist from his breath mixing with the rain. "I don't feel like passing out, so that's good." She chuckled. "You did good. We'll keep refining. But you've already taken a big step forward tonight." Danny smiled. "Thanks. I really appreciate it." She nodded, serious again. "Don't thank me yet. Tomorrow we start working on mid-cry tuning." Danny groaned. "There's more. Kid, you're just getting started." Black Canary scoffed. "Did you seriously expect to become an expert overnight?" "Would it be bad if I said kinda?" Danny questioned warily. "Yes," Black Canary said mid-chuckle. "Don't be growing arrogant just because I threw you a few compliments here and there." "Too late," he said with a mock cocky grin, floating around her. Black Canary shook her head and checked her watch. "Should we call it a night?" Danny nodded in agreement. "It is getting pretty late. Should I come at the same time and place tomorrow?" "You know, at the Arrow Cave." Danny gave a little shudder before holding himself. The quiver is still way better," Danny said with a cringe. Black Canary just gave him a wry chuckle before Danny turned invisible and disappeared from her very eyes. "Tell Mr. Ga and his sidekick I said bye. And thanks for the assistance Ms. Canary, see you tomorrow. Although Black Canary couldn't see him, she could tell he was growing further and further away. A smile grew along her lips before she leapt away from where she stood. Asterisk 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 asterisk. +10 advanced chapters on patreon.com/shadow_d_monarch3. 15 comments 0 vote. Pissed. Download the app for additional rewards. More events, more perks. Winning you more free perks. Download now. Shadow_D_monarch3. Download app now. Chapter 44. Charity Event 1. Third Person's POV. For the majority of his time in Star City, Danny had adhered to a strict and almost militaristic routine. Each day followed the same demanding rhythm, a schedule he was expected to conform to without question. After returning from grueling training sessions with Black Canary, his body would be sore and his mind exhausted, leaving him to collapse into bed with barely enough energy to shower. When he awoke, it was always the same. Dick and Bruce had already returned from their nocturnal activities, leaving no trace of their movements. Throughout the day, Danny and Dick would accompany Bruce, shadowing his every move as they made their presence known throughout Star City. Whether it was attending public events, patrolling crime-ridden neighborhoods, or gathering intel, Bruce ensured they were always seen, but never truly known. The days were long and intense, and by the time night draped the city in shadow, Bruce and Dick would vanish just as swiftly as they had arrived. Slipping into the darkness like ghosts, they would return to Gotham, undetected and unseen, leaving Danny behind. Rather than accompany them, Danny remained in Star City to continue his training with Black Canary. And truth be told, he didn't entirely mind. Despite the punishing regimen, there was something deeply rewarding about her teaching. In just 4 days, Danny had learned more than he could have imagined, not only how to better control and wield his ghostly wail, but also how to stand his ground in hand-to-hand combat. Black Canary's teaching was harsh but fair, precise and unrelenting, and it pushed him beyond limits he hadn't realized he had. But that structured routine, as unyielding as it was, didn't last forever. It was over within the 5th day. Location: Star City Hotel. Date: March 5th. Time: 4:43 p.m. Dick and Danny stood side by side in front of a tall, gilded mirror, the soft light from the chandelier above casting a golden hue over their matching tuxedos. Both were dressed in crisp black and white formal wear that gave them an air of elegance and refinement, an image of sophistication befitting Gotham's elite. Their polished black dress shoes gleamed beneath them, and their black hair had been slicked back with near-identical precision, revealing strong jawlines and piercing blue eyes that were eerily similar. Even their blue ties were the same shade, striking against their white dress shirts and chosen to match their eyes with uncanny accuracy. Facing one another, they adjusted each other's suits with silent concentration, straightening lapels, smoothing out creases, brushing off invisible lint. It was an oddly intimate ritual, one they'd done more than a few times, and it always ended the same way. "It's like looking in a mirror," they said at the same time. But while their words matched, their expressions didn't. Dick gave an exasperated sigh, accompanied by a crooked, tired smile that spoke of familiarity and mild annoyance. Danny, on the other hand, wore a smug smirk, clearly more amused by the resemblance than Dick was. Rolling his eyes, Dick asked, "Do you have to say that every single time we do this?" Danny scoffed. "Come on, man, you can't honestly tell me it's not weird how alike we look. It's not just the hair or the eyes, it's the whole package. And don't even get me started on how much we both look like Bruce. Black hair, blue eyes. You're telling me that doesn't raise at least one eyebrow?" Dick's expression shifted, wariness etched into his features as if this were a conversation he'd tiptoed around before. He gave a small shake of his head. "Danny, black hair and blue eyes aren't exactly rare genetic traits. A coincidence, sure, but that doesn't mean we're clones or something." Danny's shoulders slumped as he let out a breath, frustration evident in his voice. "Dick, we're not even related. Not by blood, anyway. I mean, really, what are the chances? Sometimes it feels like fate's got a weird sense of humor. In response, Dick simply gave Danny a gentle smack on the shoulder with the back of his hand, offering a lopsided grin as he turned on his heel. Let's just get this charity event over with, yeah. Bruce is probably checking his watch by now, and you know how he gets. Danny trailed behind, one hand slipping into his dress pants pocket while the other fidgeted with the knot of his tie. He tilted his head from side to side, grimacing. This thing is strangling me, he muttered. I swear I'll never get used to wearing these penguin suits. His complaint echoed down the hallway as the two exited the room, stepping into the night of social obligations, glass smiles, and the ever-watchful presence of Bruce Wayne. Danny and Dick sat across from Bruce inside the sleek, high-tech interior of the limousine. The ambient hum of the vehicle was a quiet backdrop to the tension slowly building in the confined space. Outside the tinted windows, Star City's blurred lights streaked past, the skyline melting into a stream of color as the car sped along its route. Bruce sat hunched slightly forward, his elbows resting on his knees, eyes narrowed at the tablet in front of him. The flickering screen cast a soft blue glow across his face, sharpening the seriousness of his expression. Without looking up, he spoke in that ever-steady, controlled tone, "Here's what I've been able to dig up regarding the recent activity involving the League of Assassins." He finally looked up, setting the tablet aside with a soft tap against the seat beside him. "I'm telling you this not to alarm you," he continued, locking eyes with both Danny and Dick, "but so that you'll stay sharp. Do not let your guard down. This is more than a hit or a vendetta. It's something bigger." The weight in his words instantly straightened both boys' postures. Their casual demeanor melted away, replaced by the steely focus that came from training under the Bat himself. Bruce went on, "The League isn't targeting Green Arrow, like we originally suspected. Something about that last encounter felt off, so I did my own digging. Turns out, Oliver Queen isn't even on their radar." He paused, the tension between them taut like a wire. "They're after an artifact," Bruce said solemnly. "A mystical amulet rumored to possess extraordinary power." "A magic amulet?" Danny echoed, lifting an eyebrow. "Do you know what it is exactly? Or where it's being kept?" Bruce gave a slow nod, then gestured to the tablet. "I don't know the full extent of its capabilities yet, only that it recently arrived in Star City. I've been combing through shipping manifests, antique catalogs, anything that's passed through customs in the last week. So far, no solid lead." Danny leaned back slightly, a glint of curiosity and mischief in his eyes. "Okay, totally unrelated question. This charity event we're headed to, does it, by chance, include some sort of high society auction or bidding war?" Bruce raised an eyebrow at the sudden shift in topic, but his mind caught up fast. "How did you figure that out?" Danny smirked. "Call it cliché awareness. We find out there's a mysterious item the villains are after, and what do you know? Suddenly there's a fancy event full of priceless antiques and artifacts." He raised his hands theatrically to his face and gasped. "What's this? A rare magical trinket just happens to be on display. And oh no, what's this now? An ambush by the League of Assassins. Who could have possibly seen that coming?" Bruce sighed, though a flicker of amusement danced in his eyes before he quickly buried it beneath his usual stoic mask. "As ridiculous as that sounds, you're not wrong. We have to be prepared for exactly that scenario." A sudden soft jolt signaled the limo had come to a smooth stop. A second later, Alfred's voice filtered through the intercom, crisp and professional. "Master Bruce, we've arrived." "Thank you, Alfred," Bruce replied, straightening his jacket. Moments later, the rear door swung open and Alfred was there in person, ever the impeccable chauffeur. As Bruce stepped out of the car, a barrage of camera flashes exploded around him like a barrage of tiny fireworks. The paparazzi, held at bay by red velvet ropes and vigilant security, shouted his name, snapping photo after photo of Gotham's most elusive billionaire. He returned their chaos with a polished, practiced smile, cool, confident, effortless. Behind him, Danny and Dick followed, stepping into the flashing frenzy with considerably less enthusiasm. They strolled casually, as if unfazed, though Danny squinted slightly under the relentless glare of the lights. Dick leaned over as they walked, whispering, "Just so we're clear, if they attack after the event is officially over, that still counts as my win." Danny gave him a look of mock pity, voice dipping into a babying tone. "Ah, is somebody getting cold feet already?" Dick scoffed, adjusting his cufflinks. "I seriously hate you sometimes. Just letting you know." Danny winked, I'll survive. Before Dick could fire back, a loud voice called out from the crowd, "Bruce." They all turned to see a tall, broad-shouldered man striding toward them with a charismatic smile. He had windswept blonde hair, a neatly groomed goatee, and wore a sharp navy blue suit that somehow managed to be both expensive and relaxed. "Ollie," Bruce greeted with genuine warmth, striding forward to meet him. The two clasped hands and pulled each other into a half-hug, the kind shared by old friends. Their handshake lingered, firm and familiar, with a hand resting on each other's shoulder as cameras went into overdrive. Danny squinted and raised a hand slightly to shield his eyes from the increasingly aggressive flashes. "Did they always have to go this hard?" he muttered under his breath. Dick nodded beside him, already pulling on his best fake smile. "Welcome to the glitz and glamour, Danny." Asterisk 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 asterisk. +10 advanced chapters on patreon.com/shadow_d_monarch3. 13 comments 0 vote. Chapter 45. Charity Event 2. Third Person's POV. Both Danny and Dick stood on either side of Bruce Wayne, watching intently as the billionaire exchanged a firm, practiced handshake with none other than Oliver Queen, CEO of Queen Industries. Flashbulbs sparked as cameras clicked rapidly, capturing the public image of two of the world's most influential men. Standing slightly behind Oliver was Dinah Laurel Lance, known to the world at large as a successful therapist, but known to a select few as the formidable vigilante, Black Canary. Today, she was dressed in an elegant dark green evening gown, her persona polished and reserved. Well, Oliver said with a sly grin, nodding toward Danny. "Looks like you've taken on a new ward since we last spoke." Bruce gave a rare, faint smile and gestured toward Danny. "Indeed. You already know Richard, of course. This is Daniel Fenton. He's recently come under my guardianship." Danny's eyes flickered with hesitation as Bruce placed a firm hand on his shoulder. Still, he managed a tight smile. "Nice to meet you, Daniel," Oliver said warmly, extending a hand. "Likewise," Danny replied, his voice trailing awkwardly as he shook the man's hand. It wasn't that he disliked Oliver, he just didn't know how to act around billionaires with thousands of cameras flashing around him. Introductions continued. Dinah greeted both Dick and Danny with grace and ease, and the boys returned the gesture politely, if not a little stiffly. Before long, Bruce and Oliver led the small entourage toward the entrance of the grand venue. As they walked in step, Dick leaned closer to Danny and murmured under his breath, "Why are you so tense? You're walking like someone shoved a stick up your, you know what." Danny's jaw tightened as he whispered back sharply, "Because this is beyond awkward. I'm not built for high society events and tight suits. All these people, these strangers, all the cameras, all the formal greetings, it's not me. I feel like a cartoon character dropped into a live-action drama." Dick smirked. "Better get used to it fast, rookie. This is just the beginning. You'll be attending events like these more often than you attend training drills." As they moved deeper into the venue, Danny's eyes scanned the room. It was a sea of tailored suits and sparkling evening dresses. Men and women exchanged pleasantries, champagne glasses in hand, perfectly curated laughs filling the air. Danny groaned under his breath. "Don't remind me. And seriously, that goatee. Who's he trying to fool?" Dick burst into a restrained chuckle. He turned to Danny with a glint of mischief in his eye. "I don't know, why don't you tell me, Daniel Fenton?" Danny sighed dramatically. "Touché, Grayson, touché." The night wore on, and the handshakes multiplied. Danny followed Bruce and Dick dutifully, smiling when he had to, nodding when expected, but the repetition drained him like a soul-sucking vacuum. Eventually, he peeled away from the crowd and staggered over to the buffet table like a survivor crawling toward an oasis. His eyes were half-lidded, posture slumped, moving as though his body ran on empty. "Food," he groaned like a zombie, grabbing a plate and piling it high with whatever caught his eye. Sushi, spring rolls, pastries, cheeses, meats, fruits, everything. Dick appeared behind him, raising an eyebrow at the Everest-sized stack on Danny's plate. "Okay, wow, that's a little much. You're not supposed to stack your plate like you're at a family reunion." This is a formal event, not an all-you-can-eat buffet. Danny didn't even blink. Listen, when I get anxious, I get hungry. When I'm hungry, I get grumpy. When I'm grumpy, I stop caring. So go on, ask me how much I care about formal etiquette right now. Dick narrowed his eyes. You really wanna play this game? Danny leaned in slightly, his tone deadly serious. Zero. Zilch. Nada. Now if you'll excuse me, I need to prevent a hunger-induced breakdown. Chuckling, Dick shook his head and trailed after him, grabbing a more modest plate of food. The two made their way back to one of the circular tables near the wall, where Bruce sat in calm observation of the crowd. Danny dropped into the chair with the dramatic energy of someone returning from war. Bruce raised an eyebrow at the mountain of food, clearly unimpressed. Before he could comment, Danny held up a hand. Don't start. I already got the lecture from Dick. I'm aware this is improper. I simply don't care anymore. With that, he began devouring his food with quiet satisfaction, eyes closed in bliss as he chewed. Bruce glanced toward Dick with a silent question in his eyes. Dick mouthed, anxiety. Bruce exhaled through his nose in quiet understanding and nodded slightly. As Danny ate, his demeanor relaxed and some color returned to his cheeks. Between bites, he glanced up at Bruce and asked, shouldn't you be out there right now? I mean, mingling, flirting, doing your whole, charming billionaire playboy, act and gathering intel. There's a time and place for everything, Bruce replied calmly. Danny scoffed. I'm just saying, no offense, but women talk. A lot, and we're trying to find a very specific artifact here. If anyone overheard gossip about a mysterious necklace or enchanted amulet, chances are it's one of them. You charm a few ladies, ask the right questions, and boom, info drop. Bruce blinked slowly, caught off guard by Danny's blunt assessment. Dick looked equally stunned, unsure whether to respond or just let the moment pass. Bruce, ever composed, turned thoughtful. He might have a point, Bruce finally muttered. Dick leaned toward Danny. Okay, that was unexpectedly insightful. Slightly sexist, but still insightful. Danny just shrugged and stuffed another bite into his mouth, mumbling through a satisfied grin. I know. All you need to do is feed me and I can work wonders. Finally, Bruce closed his eyes and sighed before standing up and adjusting his suit. I'll be back. Look after each other, he said before disappearing into the crowd. Dick shook his head and gave Danny a curious look. So, how are you feeling now that you've got some food in your stomach? Better, but I still feel a bit out of place, Danny admitted softly, his voice low. Dick smiled and was about to say something encouraging, until Danny spoke again, this time with a vulnerability Dick had never heard from him before. Dick, I don't belong here. Dick stared, the smile fading from his face. Danny was still looking down at his plate, not saying anything else. Dick opened his mouth, then closed it. Tried again, same result. He looked like a gaping fish, struggling to find the right words. Being at the forefront of it all, it's like entering a new world. Meeting so many different people, it's like they're from a completely different planet, Danny said, absent-mindedly pushing his food around with his fork. Hearing those words, Dick blinked. He knew exactly how that felt. A soft smile returned to his face as he asked, you know, I don't think I ever told you my story before, have I? Danny furrowed his brows. While he knew the story, Dick had never personally told him. He shook his head. My parents, like yours, didn't have normal jobs. They were acrobats, we were known as the Flying Graysons. Dick's gaze dropped, his expression softening as memories flashed through his mind. Then it hardened. But unlike yours, who tragically passed away in an accident, mine were murdered. A heavy silence settled over the two orphaned, black-haired, blue-eyed boys. It lingered, until Dick sighed. It wasn't exactly easy, fitting into Bruce's world. Honestly, I know exactly how you're feeling right now. Like you don't belong, like you're an imposter. Like there's this giant pressure trying to shove you into a mold you weren't made for. Like forcing a puzzle piece where it doesn't fit. Danny's mouth twitched as he hesitantly asked, and how exactly did you manage to fit in? I didn't, Dick said, looking at Danny awkwardly. It's funny, really. Even after all these years, going through the notions, sometimes, I still feel like I don't belong. Like I said, with the puzzle piece, the trick is to find where you do fit. To find your place. And the rest, it shouldn't matter. And where is it? If you don't mind me asking, where is the place you fit? Danny asked. Dick looked around for a moment, then cupped his hands around his mouth so only Danny could see. He mouthed, "As Robin." Danny's eyes widened for a second, then he chuckled, shaking his head. Dick had always been his favorite Robin for a reason.